I know Chris, for maybe the last 5 years, and we were together at a lot of rallies all across the country during the COVID hysteria and other kind of rallies. And I'm pleased that Chris, you are with us today. And can you, for our viewers, introduce yourself before we start our discussion?
Sure. So my name is Chris Elston. I'm known on social media as Billboard Chris because I travel all around North America for the last 2.5 years, having conversations out on the street, outside of our echo chambers, in busy downtown centers, and I go to a lot of universities as well. Just having conversations about what I consider to be the child abuse of child transition. There's no right way to be a boy or a girl. There's no such thing as a transgender child. They're called girls and boys, and they're beautiful just as they are. And we shouldn't be blocking puberty in children, giving them the wrong sex hormones, and doing surgeries. But tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of kids worldwide are getting caught up in this now medically. And we need to put a stop to it because if people want to do something as an adult, that's a totally different conversation. But our kids are fine just as they are. And so I'm trying to raise awareness about what I consider to be the greatest child abuse scandal in modern medicine history.
I believe so also. And, I want to thank you for everything that you're doing. And, I believe that today people are more and more concerned about that, because of what is happening in our schools and everywhere. And also because of all your work that you did the last couple of years about it. And now people understand what is happening a little bit more. We still have to work hard for having the majority on our side, but I believe that's common sense. A man is a man, a woman is a woman, and a man cannot be a woman, and vice versa. It's based on science, on biology. So I believe, and on common sense. So I believe that we'll be able to win that battle. But that being said, I believe also last Friday you were at a rally. I think last Friday it was the Transgender Day, and I don't know. You attended a rally in Vancouver. Will Before you speak about that, I believe that for our viewers, we will show them the viral clip of that rally. You were not so welcome to that rally. So let's look to that clip, and after that, we'll have a discussion about it.
I mean, it's clearly was aggressive, violent assault.
You suck. You suck. Fuck you. Fuck you. You're not wanted. Fuck you. You're a fucking idiot. You're a fucking.
I don't know
idiot.
what to say.
Fuck
I guess
you.
these police officers
Fuck
are mostly
you
indoctrinated as well.
Everyone here.
They're afraid of the mob.
Because you're a fucking idiot.
I think they're afraid that if they do anything to actually keep law and order, that they'll end up being on the end of this verbal abuse. So it's just cowardice from everybody all around.
People probably want to know, how do you keep your composure?
Fuck you!
What's that?
How do you keep your composure?
Fuck you! 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 Hey! Get your fucking ass up there! You
Oh my God!
I just noticed just now. I knew this officer that we're going to talk about was smiling during that, but I hadn't seen that image of her walking there, still just smiling the whole time. It's incredible.
Yeah. So you had a bunch of police officers who were there doing nothing. So did you have a discussion with them before that event and after, or?
I didn't talk to them before I went there. I just went to this event. And so that was the second assault against me that day. That's the more major one. But I got to this park, Grandview Park in East Vancouver, and there were about 75 people for this transgender rally. And there was my friend Pierre Barnes, who has done great work all across Canada exposing the books that are in schools and everything, some of these pornographic books. But he was all on his own, and he was surrounded by some hostile people. So I made my way down to him, and I couldn't get to him because immediately people got in my way. My sign was marked up with a felt marker, and I was assaulted right away, and I ended up with a bloody nose. And so I did what you do in these situations, a bunch of violent people. I called 911 for the police to come. And I guess that officer, the smiling officer, she must have been just around the corner. She showed up really quick, and right away I knew I had a problem because I said to her, I should be able to walk freely in Canada without getting assaulted. And she said, well, and right away I knew I was not going to get any help from this officer. I didn't get any help from any of the officers. Over the next 45 minutes, about 40 of them arrived, and none of them did anything. They all just stood around with their hands in their pockets. And I'm trying to give this interview to Dan Dix, this independent journalist, and they surrounded me, so I walked away. They came and surrounded me again. I walked away, but police wouldn't do anything. So I was just giving the interview, and I've got people on top of me screaming right in my ear. It hurts your eardrum. And now they're kind of in front of me. I can't move. Police are doing nothing. I'm technically being assaulted. So all I did was put up a little hand. I didn't even push. Just, give me my space. And immediately they take that as provocation to commit violence. And what did the police do? Nothing. They didn't arrest anybody. They told me, that woman, the officer told me that this was a mutual fight. And she even told a journalist that I'd been screaming at people and instigated it. Max, I recorded every single second of my time there. The only time I wasn't recording was when I was on the phone to 911. But Dan was recording the entire thing.
Yeah.
It's all a joke. It's just a total joke. It's a farce of Canadian policing. And it's an embarrassment to Canada in front of the whole world, because this has made world news.
Oh my God. So can you do something, after all that, were you in touch with the chief police about that event?
I've been in touch with the chief of police. An investigator called me. I think they got so much flack online on social media that they've started an investigation. They wanted me to come in and give a statement. I talked to a lawyer. He said, no, they don't need you to come in. They're just up to some sort of monkey business trying to get out of this somehow. All they need is what they already have, which is all the video evidence you could ever want in any investigation. We have it from multiple angles of every single second. So I told them to send me their questions, and they just want me to send in a write-up. So I'll do that. But they already have all the evidence they need. If they don't press charges, and if Crown doesn't approve charges, this is a total outrage, because people should be allowed to counter-protest. People should be allowed to walk freely in Canada when they're peaceful. And if you get assaulted, those people should be arrested, but they don't want to do it because these people identify as trans. And the last thing a Canadian police officer wants to do, apparently, is to put one of these thugs in handcuffs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a shame what they did, what they didn't do, actually, the police, and what these trans activists, radical trans activists did to you. We are supposed to be in a free and democratic country. And like you said, you must be able to be out there and just, peacefully being out there with your sign. And, you want to tell people that you have another point of view about all that. And I agree with you. What they're doing to kids, it's child abuse. And it's so sad what the status of our country today. But I know that, you are traveling also. You said that in the beginning of our interview that you're traveling in the US. And do you have a better understanding over there with politicians about the situation? And what is it a little bit easier for you to promote the common sense point of view in the US?
Absolutely. So there are organizations fighting this down there. The United States was born out of rebellion.
Yeah.
And there's always been this, understanding that the government isn't always going to be on your side. And when something goes haywire down in the US, people fight back. There's a bit of a different culture in Canada, but down there are a lot of organizations fighting this. And I've had incredible support. I've been meeting with members of Congress. I've been meeting with staff from the House Oversight Committee, which is probably the most powerful committee in Congress. I met Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, a few weeks ago when they unveiled the new Parents' Bill of Rights, which not one single Democrat voted in favor of. But I have a lot of support down there. with some of the biggest conservative think tanks in the world, like the Heritage Foundation. And we've been making great progress. And now, finally, there's about 20 states that are passing legislation to stop this child abuse. About 8 or 9 states have already passed it. Other states have it in the process. But up here in Canada, you're the only politician who will say any truth about this. Not one conservative MP offers me even a hint of support. Last year, they passed a bill called Bill C-4, which made it a criminal offense for a parent to help her girl feel comfortable as a girl or her boy as a boy.
Yeah.
Moms and dads can go to jail for wanting their kids to be who they really are. It's totally fine to convince your girl she's a boy and turn her into a lifelong pharmaceutical patient and to sterilize her. But it's not fine to help them feel comfortable in their skin. This is totally absurd. And this passed unanimously through the House. And Pierre Poilievre, even with Bill C-6, the precursor, so first this bill was presented as Bill C-6, but then Trudeau called an election. So all the bills die when an election gets called and they come back. Yeah. But even with Bill C-6, back then a majority of conservatives on third reading voted against this bill, but Pierre was one of the MPs who voted for it. So he's not a conservative. What's he conserving other than the Liberals' latest policies?
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. It's Poilievre and all the conservatives absolutely voted about that bill C-4. And for our viewers, they must know that, it's perfectly legal in Canada for the director of a school to speak with the kids over there and saying, if you don't feel to be a girl and today you feel to be a man, it's okay. And don't say that to your parents. We can go see a doctor and we'll solve that together. And as you know, that happened in Vancouver in BC a couple of months ago. So, and that bill just promoted that, the way that, or the fact that, kids can be another gender. It is not. And you're absolutely right. I want to thank you also because you educated me about all that a couple of years ago. I knew nothing about that trend in our country, and being with you and you've been very helpful for me as a politician and for us, for the People's Party, and I'm strongly on your side, on the common sense side, but also. The conservative, they're supposed to defend conservative family values, but it is not. And can you tell us a little bit more about the drag queen story hour? What is the political ideology beside that? What is their goal to promote that kind of event in school libraries and in front of kids? And they're saying that it's a family event. And but for me, when I was younger, drag queen, that was in a bar late at night for adults. And now they are promoting that to the family and with children. And for them it's supposed to be funny and comic. But there's a very dangerous philosophy beside that. Can you explain that to our viewers?
Okay, so why do all these men performing as hypersexualized versions of women want to read to little kids in the first place? It's totally obscene. Why don't we bring in senior citizens from old folks' homes, great-grandmothers and great-grandfathers who are lonely and would love to talk to these kids and read them stories and tell some of the stories of them growing up? That'd be a great thing for these kids. But instead, we have this thing called queer theory infecting all of society. And what Drag Queen Story Hour really is, this is a concerted effort all over the Western world, and it's an introduction to queer theory for little kids. It's the introduction to gender ideology for little kids. It's putting this idea in their minds that you can change sex. And it's trying to normalize this behavior. This is a part of grooming. And we've got to put a stop to it because we can't live in a society that's doing this to little kids. We can't live in a society that's teaching that it's totally fine to sterilize and mutilate your body. In Amsterdam last week, there was a television program where there's these 10 and 11-year-old kids on a panel, and they march out naked adults for these kids to look at. And in this episode, this whole show is totally absurd, but in this episode, they had transgender adults with their breasts cut off or whatever body modifications had been done. And they're doing this in front of 10 and 11-year-old kids. This is queer theory. And these children's first reaction was fear.
Yeah.
Yes, these are instincts that are built into us for a reason. This is not normal and it's not okay, but they're trying to normalize all of this. So we have to torch queer theory. We've got to stop its progress in society because it's not okay and it's corrupting kids. It's making kids think that things that are perverse and wrong are just normal. So we've got to speak up as parents to put a stop to this because our kids are the ones that they're trying to indoctrinate.
Absolutely. And I believe that you may know here in Canada, the CBC and the federal government, actually the federal government sponsored an event in Vancouver, in BC. I think they gave for the last 2 years about $200,000 for that for these people to promote a kind of a drag queen camps for people as young as 7 years old. So that's another kind of indoctrination. I believe that they want to show to our kids that, you may see a biological man, but, that may not be the reality, because if you look at the performer and this man that is like a woman, hypersexualized, you may not know what is the reality and what is not the reality. They want to confuse young people and they become sexually confused. And after that, they may ask to do a transition. I don't like that word, transition, because there's no transition. You're a man or you're a woman, but that's in their ideology. What do you think about these drag queen camps for kids at 7 years old kids?
Yeah, this stuff's everywhere because, like you said, it's funded. It's funded by the government. It's funded by these TQ organizations. And I call them TQ because we shouldn't call them LGBTQ because they're really nothing to do with LGBT. Yeah. People who are gay, that's just your attraction. This is something different. This is a denial of reality. This is about modifying bodies so that a child's body more closely matches the stereotypes of the other sex. Now, these children who end up in these gender clinics, historically, this condition of gender dysphoria affected 1 out of 30,000 boys, less than half that for girls. But when most of these kids went through puberty, their gender dysphoria just went away. They grew out of it. We have academic studies on this. The most recent study showed that 87.8% of these boys grew out of it. 63.6% grew up to be gay. This was before they did all this puberty blocking and cross-sex hormones and everything. What's going on today is totally different. This is just a craze. These children don't even have legitimate gender dysphoria. They're just caught up in this cultish ideology that teaches them that you can just switch your sex. And it's all these kids who are struggling. They have maybe been abused or sexually abused. Parents are 10 times as likely to have been sex offenders. Obviously, usually the dads in these situations. Kids in foster care are overrepresented. About half of these kids have autism. It's all these kids who just feel like they aren't fitting in, and they're being told, well, that's because you were born in the wrong body. Yeah. What an abusive thing to say to a child, that you were born wrong. Yeah. My gosh, we should be telling these children the actual body positive message, which is that they're beautiful and a girl can be a tomboy. She's not an actual boy. Yeah. So people are learning this and we're winning. And that's one of the reasons we're seeing more violence all around the world. We have states passing legislation. We have people all around the world starting to speak up out in the real world now. And so the people pushing these really harmful ideologies, they just had a free run for quite a while. And they're finally getting pushback. And what we're seeing is they're getting violent. So this will probably get worse before it gets better, but we have to keep pushing.
Yeah, and you're doing that, and I'm doing that also. And, you're absolutely right. I believe that, the common sense will prevail, science will prevail, and it's sad for these kids. But also, I believe that the drag queen story hour, yeah, it's what you just said ideologically, but also one of their motive is to disturb the family values, and it's the core of our society. So that's why I believe it's important for people to understand it is not, you must not bring your kids to these drag queen story hours just to have fun. They're not clowns, they are promoting an ideology, and it's not normal. And, long time ago in Canada, when you had problems to accept your own body, that was gender dysphoria. That was, a problem. But now, no, you cannot say gender dysphoria. It's not politically correct, but that's the reality. So I want to thank you for everything that you're doing. And if our viewers want to follow you, where can they follow you and on social media?
So it's at Billboard Chris on Twitter and Instagram. My website's billboardchris.com. They can support me through there if they like. But really what I ask people to do is to get educated about this, because then we can have intelligent and compassionate conversations about it. No one needs to be bombastic. We just need to tell the truth about what's going on, because the truth spreads for free. The left has a lot of money and organization behind them, but we have the truth.
Yeah.
And we're winning, and we're going to keep winning. And I know that parents, especially when they figure out what's going on, they're not okay with this. And I have so many messages from Canadians who don't know what to do. So everyone's got to use their own gifts and skill sets to do something, but they can get involved in school boards. They can go to school board meetings and speak up. They can talk to their teachers and principals, because most of those teachers and principals aren't in favor of this either. But this is all being pushed from the very top. I've even met with top officials in the Surrey School District, which is one of the biggest school districts in Canada. We met for an hour. And I know they're on my side. They can't say anything, but they're powerless to change it, because it's coming from the union and it's coming from the government. The BC Teachers Federation, it's written policy to hide from a parent that their child has a new name and pronouns at school. These are powerful psychosocial interventions. This is a psychological intervention going on by completely unqualified people who are driving a wedge between the child and their parents. It's like you said, there is an attack on the nuclear family. This is all part of this radical leftist ideology, and the radical capture the entire, because no one on the left wants to speak up. Even if they disagree, they won't speak up against it. So we just got to keep getting the truth out there. And we need to get the PPC more votes, because this Conservative Party is just part of the Uniparty. I would love to get Trudeau out of power. Yes, that's a huge priority. But what's the point if you get Pierre Poilievre in power and he's not going to do anything about any of this either? I would rather see the Conservative Party crash and burn and rebuild as an actual Conservative Party, or see the People's Party rise up and take the place of the Conservative Party. That's what really needs to happen right now. So people need to get off this idea that, well, the PPC isn't going to win many seats, so we need to keep voting for the Conservatives. That's not how it works. You're just voting for the people who are the problem.
And you're right about that. When people are telling me, Maxime, you are splitting the vote, I said, just wait a little bit. Read our platform and look at what Poilievre is saying in the platform of the Conservative Party of Canada. There's a huge difference. So if you want to split something, you split something that is the same. We are not the same. You look at, we are fighting for common sense. We are fighting for children. We are fighting for family values. We are fighting for sustainable immigration. So our policies are very different. So that's why we don't split any vote. But Poilievre's goal is to split the Liberal votes. And he's doing that pretty well. That's why I agree with you. They're the Libcon party. They're the same. So what is the point to vote for Poilievre and having a light Trudeau in government? So I'm saying to people, if you want to change, start by voting for what you believe in, and you'll have more chances to have what you want. But actually, we are doing that battle together, and I really appreciate that. And also, it's, it's everywhere, that woke ideology. Actually, last week we had the Canadian Forces that decided to promote that transgender day, and they said that they're for inclusion and no discrimination. But at the same time, the same Canadian Forces discriminated against the non-vaccinated people in the Canadian Forces, non-vaccinated soldiers. They said, you cannot be a soldier anymore, and they just tell them to leave the Canadian Forces. And now they're saying we are open to everybody, including the transgender people. But that's not true. That's another woke organization, and we need to put common sense there and common sense everywhere. So we have a big fight to do, Chris. But as you just said, we have the truth on our side, and the truth will always win. So I believe that our time will come. We just need to be patient and do that fight. So I want to thank you for everything that you're doing. And next time that I'll be in BC, I hope I'll be able to see you and have another discussion.
Yeah, let's do it. And let's organize a rally this summer. We'll get a bunch of good Canadians out who aren't afraid to tell the truth and stand up for our kids. So that would be a fun thing to do together. But thank you so much for having me, Max. I really appreciate your support. And I'll do everything I can to support you, because you're the only one telling the truth. You're the only one who's not afraid of the woke in Canada. And we saw this in Florida with Ron DeSantis, all the gains he's made. He just talks like a normal person from the year 2010, and he stands up for parents. And it's a fabulous winning formula. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And, I won't change and you won't change, because we have the truth and the science on our side, and the common sense. So let's do that fight together. Thank you, Chris, and see you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you.